Hello and welcome to One Take CEO Interviews. I'm Dale Kirshner. Today's interview is with Jill Blashak Strahan, founder and CEO of Tastefully Simple. Jill started this company back in 1995 on the belief that people are in search of crazy delicious food that's insanely easy to prepare. She's had quite the journey since then, and I just think it's going to be a fascinating discussion today to have Jill with us. So Jill, welcome to One Take.
Hey, Dale, I'm honored to be here and get a chance to chat with you and all of your viewers.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about, I mentioned you founded this back in 1995, but tell us a little bit about how things went in the early years, and then just briefly, how have things been in like the last 10 years and leading up to pre-COVID-19?
Yeah, well, it'd probably be more fun just to talk about the early years, but that's not how business works. So, I started Tastefully Simple in 1995. All 25 years, we've been all about easy to prepare, like you said, crazy delicious food, and started out in a shed with no running water, packing orders on a pool table, just me. It had its certain challenges, of course, because I didn't understand the direct sales business at all, and I was learning as I went along. And the peak year in sales, it was like in 2008, and we were $143 million. We were, within the first 5 years, we were over 100 million. And so it was meteoric, and just kind of hung on for the ride and just figured things out as we went along. It was beautiful. And then I'll go back to 7 years ago, if I may. Is when sales have been declining for a multitude of reasons, but that I won't get into. However, we have been in a 7-year drought. We were without profit since 2012, and including last year. This will be the first year we've had profit in 7 years. So hence why I called it the 7-year drought. Very, very difficult times, and that I probably will end up writing another book about it, because it was a psychological warfare, for me, and of course, physical, financial warfare as well. So we ran through about $32 million in reserves, and thank God we had reserves. Although my turnaround advisor said, "Too bad you had reserves, because we might have done something sooner." And we started making the difficult choices and layoffs, and 3 different, from 66 people, we went from 350 employees. Right now we have about 75. We've been stabilized right there, but we don't have a lot of horsepower. We're starting to rebuild the horsepower because it's difficult to hire when you have to put more money in and talk to people about coming over to a company that you don't think is probably going to survive. And then I did put in, on top of that, I put in $5 million of my own. I did a line of credit for the company to keep it afloat and keep it going. So it was a very challenging time. And if any of you as listeners ever want to reach out to me, feel free to do so, because it's a very, very lonely ride. Very lonely ride. So by the grace of God and seriously COVID, we have had the blessing of having our first profitable year, and we had done enough work. We had become tastefully complex, so started layering in things on top, and we just hadn't simplified. And so it's really been a good thing to be back leading the team again, being lean and mean. And I've always been very involved in the business, but I've been leading the team myself for the last couple of years. And so we really got back to some of the core of the business, which came into place like in February, and then COVID popped in on top of that, and we were ready to rock and roll. So it's been a beautiful thing. People are eating at home, and we only sell to people who eat. So it's really good. Yeah. Okay, I'm talking now, and I'll let you ask questions.
Well, that's a great answer, so thank you. Going back to what you were talking about, as we anticipate more companies are going to be, more owners of companies are going to be reaching that point in time where they need to start thinking turnaround. They need to start making tough decisions. When you look back at the fact that you had those reserves, what was the number one thing that you did from a turnaround perspective that you wish you would have done earlier and was very significant in terms of what it did for your business?
That's a great question. Oh, there's a lot of things in retrospect that I would have done earlier. The beautiful thing about being profitable is it's fun. It's a great ride. You build the team, and we built a large leadership team. I think out of our 350 people, we had 50 people in leadership. We were just too flippin' fat. I mean, we got fat. And I would say, I frankly still don't know how I would have led differently, because I was empowering leads to be able to build their team accordingly. But boy, our strategic plan is now we called the Plan to Win for a few years, and then we switched it to call it the GSD, which stands for Get Stuff Done. And you can get a lot done. We kind of went back to the shed days. And we went back to bootstrapping and being very entrepreneurial and creating. And I once heard a speaker say that it was the founder of Amway. And for a variety, I wasn't real excited to hear him speak necessarily. But one of the things that Rich DeVos said that just has never left me, he said, as entrepreneurs, we get into the business to build and create. We love to build and create, and that's why we get in. And then over time, as we grow, we go into the second phase, which is managing, who gets which office, and we have to expand, and we have to do all these things. And so, and then the third stage is we become defenders of non-growth. And the last stage is we blame. So I look back at that, and I wasn't building and creating anymore. Like that's what I'm wired to do. And so we're back into that building and creating, and the team is so small. And we don't have the leaders. Like I said, I have a few, but we're needing to build out our leaders, like a VP of sales and a training manager I just hired last week. Thank you, Jesus. So I was very hands-on in doing all of those things. But it really helped us solidify and unify again. So the lesson learned was, would I know how to lead through people like that and say, do we really have to have that many people on a training team? Do we really have to, you ask the question, but until you don't really know. So I'm still not sure how I would have done that differently, but I definitely would have started having cutbacks earlier. Well, then, our culture was, we just didn't want to do that in our culture. We were a family, it was hard to do.
Well,
I know people know. No, I know how people know about that, especially with COVID. It's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Just flipping it around, as you build up again, let's say this year is just the beginning of a dynamic growth period where you quickly go up to 500 million in annual revenue. How do you plan to build out your leadership team going forward so that it doesn't get too top heavy, but you're not micromanaging?
That is a very good question. We're all, I said, I think all of us are very wary of getting fat again. So that's a blessing too, that we're not trying to, everybody's been through the Great Depression, if you will, and they're all cautious about spending. And so it's not like we'll have to fight against that too much, but as a vision team, we're already hearing, well, we really do need, this position and this position, and we do in order to grow again. And so we know that that's a big part of that. So I believe though we'll do a lot more pressure testing and challenging the thinking and making sure that, I don't know if there's people that come in and do a study on performance or, how much capacity people have. There's probably some way out there of doing that, but I think the team is really okay with being cautious is the net.
And speaking of that, you've had to shift gears with your team. You go from dynamic growth to periods of leaner times. And then all of a sudden this year, it sounds like things really kind of started taking off, but in different ways. So how have you led the shifting of the gears with people and kept them engaged and feeling like they know where you're heading?
Well, as our internal team and then as our sales force, because we have, thousands of people selling our products, and then we have our internal team. Our HQ team, we've really over the years have been pretty maniacal about always sharing the vision with them so they know where we're going. And I was never one to butter it up too much when we were hurt. And we say, we're going to lose money again this year, you guys, but we're going to hang in there. And we lost a lot of people during that time. But now what we do and continue to do is we have monthly all team meetings. We have all-in day in January and share the new GSD and what stuff we're going to get done in 2021. And we also have them, now we've also had very complex strategic planning where we would have the team be a part of brainstorming. And but the challenge with that, I've learned if you get too many people involved in the brainstorming, there's you have to be willing to eat your young. and if people get married to their idea, I'm using two different metaphors, but if people give an idea and they get really excited about it and then you don't move forward with it, it's a challenge. So now we just say, just email your ideas to us and we engage them in that way. But they're very, very involved in the execution, of course. And then we share every single all-team meeting. We use the traction method of going through our initiatives, which we've used that process for many years now. But we tell them whether we're on track, off track, and the status of all of our initiatives. And the team is, I would say there's never an issue. Actually, our survey that we used to do, we haven't done one in a few years when we had cutbacks and trying to preserve resources, but we always get like 99% of our team understand the vision of where we're going. So, because a confused mind shuts down, if they don't know where we're going. And then we also share it with all of our sales force too. Now I do a video and we share the applicable initiatives with them so they know what they have to look forward to.
How much
is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And how much has COVID changed how you operate now this year compared with how you were operating last year?
Well, we're operating with profit because people are staying at home and eating, and so feeling very blessed by that. But the other than that, we are working from home. I have not worked in my office in Alexandria since mid-March, and I'm doing it mostly to model for the rest of the team, so they're not feeling like they need to be there. We've come in and we've held our virtual conference. We went from a live conference to a virtual conference, and we did that in one of our warehouses where we had it wasn't occupied, converted into a production studio. And I'll tell you, the virtual conferences and these Zoom events that we've done, I'm digging it. I'm super digging it because we went from anticipating having 300-400 people at our live conference in Minneapolis to having almost 1,300 people at our virtual conference. So our reach is so much better. Instead of just calling people now and having a conference call, we get on Zoom with our top leaders, which we could have done before, but we didn't. And now we do it because I say, well, let's not do a call, let's see them. So when we see them face to face, it actually builds better relationships because we can see how they're reacting and responding to things. And so I would say the virtual conferences, the virtual meetings, working from home. We've also had, and our sales have been up dramatically over last year. Now that's, again, COVID related, but we were also without 21% of our product line due to baking goods and manufacturers couldn't keep up. We lost one of our primary vendors because they just couldn't keep up. And but that turned out to work out for the best too. We found a closer vendor. And so we're back now. I think we're still missing three of our top selling baked goods. So that the supply chain was impacted. But otherwise, I would say if the COVID and we moved very quickly. What I've loved about this time is it's just, like I said, it's so flipping entrepreneurial. We move quick. The team is agile. We said we shut down. We were working from home in mid-March. By the 23rd of March, we had a training on how to do online parties. Within 1 week, we did a boot camp. The next week, we did a booking blitz. 2 days later, we did a big incentive to bring in. We brought in 3,900 new consultants with our 25-year incentive, which was a steal. And some people did literally steal the kit, meaning they paid $25 and got $180 worth of stuff and never did 40% never did anything. But the ones who did are driving millions of dollars for us in sales this year. So it was worth the investment. So some of those things, it's about just, it's all, I would say the biggest thing has been the flexibility and just learning to adapt. And I think as entrepreneurs, we live in that world and we thrive in that world. And so the team has built that muscle too. And you can't ever take away that. from them to learn how to move quickly.
Yeah, I envision in 1995, you were the scrappy, innovative, agile person who had to convince people to kind of do things, or had to be the main person coming up with all these creative ideas. What you just described, how much of that is coming from all 75 of your employees? What percentage of them are the creative types that are chipping in? Because sometimes we see in organizations that even people in HR or operations come up with creative ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have some very innovative people. I've also learned it's not. There's a great assessment if you've ever have the opportunity to take it. That's called the Kolbe. Have you taken that, Dale?
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's spelled Kolb as in boy E. Kolbe. Fascinating. And in our leadership team, I am a quick start. And out of the 12 leaders we have now, I was like, there was only a couple of us in the leadership team that were quick start, which is where we put our energy. And so I'm a quick start, which is typically an entrepreneur. My follow through sucks. I'm a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 9 on follow through. So, but everybody else was really high on follow through. So God love them. So that whole environment is really good. And yet you can't have a ton of ideators or it's chaos. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm in there, maybe a handful of other people, but I've learned if you get around in a room, so much of what we've accomplished has been from just building things off each other and coming up with really fabulous ideas. So sometimes it's just being the spark as the leader and helping spark a thought. So yeah, the team has been amazing at that.
Great. And then the other thing that we've heard from some of the other CEOs, especially in the last probably month, has been the external factors and how much stress and anxiety that has been bringing into either the internal environment or with customer relations, things of that nature. Some people have found that some of their folks are more likely to snap or just aren't as happy as usual. Wondering if you've seen that at all, and if you have, how you've been dealing with that as a leader.
Well, I'm a little bit Pollyannish, and one of my top strengths is positivity. So I would say we're going to be doing a COVID survey just to see how everybody is doing. My sense of it, and I'm pretty connected with most of the team. Of course, the DC, the distribution center, they're all in-house working, and so that's good. The rest of the team, I would say, of course, the ones that are struggling more are the ones that have children at home and are homeschooling and trying to work, and their husbands at home too. And so there is some of that stress going on. And yet I would say when it's the companies that are struggling more that have that stress on top of it. And so that energy is helping us because it's been doing well. We do still have our all team meetings via Zoom. We, for our birthday, our 25-year birthday that we have big plans for this year, we ended up saying whoever's comfortable coming in, come on in and we'll do beer on the patio, or I call it, if it's a rainy day, then I call it wine by the windows, and socially distant. But to have that connection is really important. And I'm concerned going into 2021, how people will become, like during the turnaround, people became fatigued. The turnaround fatigue, it'll be COVID fatigue, without a doubt, as this continues. We canceled our Christmas parties for our leadership team, but they'll be, I'm calling them Xanta Zoom-ins. And then Jackie, my assistant, came up with a great idea that we're going to do 12 days of Christmas and have door prizes every day in December to just have a little fun with that. And then we'll do a Zoom-in happy hour with them too. So it's doing some of those things along the way. And one day they'll come in and they can get their little goodie bag, Santa bag of goodies and things, and pick up their door prizes and stuff. So but it is a bit of a struggle. Now, we are very, very fortunate to be in outstate Minnesota, so we weren't dealing with a lot of the stressors that metropolitan areas were dealing with riots, and that was a whole nother level of sadness and grieving for Minneapolis and other major cities. So in terms of our sales force, I've been a lot more, one of the other great outcomes has been I've been a lot more spontaneous, and I get on Facebook Live every once in a while and just kind of talk and get people excited again and get them. realizing that this too shall pass. And when we have hope for the future, we have power in the present. And to remind people this is going to pass. And if they start looking in the future and thinking it's all hell and damnation, the mind moves toward its focus, and that's not going to be healthy for them or their families either. So, we try to buoy them up and remind them and put good jelly in their donut and keep them focused on the future.
Now, with that in mind, when you talked before about how lonely it can be when you're in an organization or you're running a company, I mean, it's your company, and one thing after another, you can't bring it back to profitability. You're 6 years into this. And you mentioned how that's lonely and it can really wear at you. What would be your advice for other business owners who are finding themselves in a big struggle right now? Maybe they're only months into it, or maybe they're years into it too. What would be your one comment in terms of how you were able to keep that resilience going and how they can as well?
If you only let me pick one, Dale, it would be
Your top three.
I have several of them, but my top one would be the most important one to me. Well, there's two. I could never have done it without my faith. Mm-hmm. So this is an aside. It's very important, and I just the power of prayer, and I didn't think. So there's that. The second piece would be to really know what you're willing to fight for. And I was not willing to give up. And I have more guts and sense. And I was told by all of my financial advisors, everybody, why are you putting in $5 million line of credit, Jill? You're probably never going to see that again. You're probably going to go. They didn't, the thought that we were not going to be around was very, very real. And so I look at that and I think now that I was willing to fight because I used the deathbed test. And the deathbed test is, excuse me 1 minute. The deathbed test is, when I'm on my deathbed, will I have any regrets? And my brother died in a fire when he was 28 years old and I was 26. And it started my life in a totally different trajectory because I started asking myself, what would I wish I had done if I only had a month left to live? And when I'm on my deathbed, when he was found, 3 feet from the front door, what was he wondering what was going through his head, wishing he had done something different? And I did not want to be on my deathbed thinking, damn, Jill, if you had just put in that money, will you regret that you didn't put money in to just see if you could pull it through? And it worked. But I would say those were my top two, would be faith and know what you're willing to fight for. And I was willing to fight for my team because we're in Alexandria, we're an employer there that's important to our community. And I was willing to fight for the brand that we'd worked really hard for with Tastefully Simple over those 25 years. So, and then of course we had all of our salespeople. That I wanted to make sure that if we could, to maintain that direct selling channel, because I've learned that $250 a month makes a difference to a lot of people. That gets them some extras in their life that they can't afford. And that's important to me too.
Yeah. And then,
it's really important to have a kick butt playlist on your iPod. Does anybody have iPods anymore? I do.
One last question before I ask you well, it's my second to last question, but the last question will come after this, and that'll be what should I've asked you about. But before I get to that, you talked about how in February of this year, you were finally at that point where you felt like things were turning around. What were the things that you did, just in short? How were you at that point in February? What was so different in February so that you felt like this would be a good year?
And we still weren't turning around, but we had unveiled our new business blast off kit, and the starter kit that people got was pathetic. And it just, you have to pick your battles and where you're going to put your energy as a CEO. And I was busy for looking for investors and putting, all that it's a full-time job. And I said, you spend more time putting your finger in the hole of the hull of the boat so it doesn't sink. You don't have time to be moving the boat forward. You just have to keep the boat afloat. And so we had just gone in and started cleaning up our portal and focusing in on how do we onboard new consultants. So that was what we launched in February, which was a new party food kit that was really funky and fun and just simplified what that new person was getting when they joined. So if we brought in 3,900 people, And again, a confused mind shuts down. If they had gotten that kit and gone to our portal, they would have been in total disarray. So that is what really helped set us up for success. And then one by one, it's just a one by one, taking things off the list that need to be fixed. And it can be really overwhelming and not knowing where to start to have the biggest impact. So now this year we're focusing more on the leaders and helping the leaders be stronger so they can help their teams grow. That's our focus this year.
What question should I have asked you that I didn't ask?
Gosh, that's a good one. I'm not sure. I could go on and on for days, as you well know. Oh, I would say, if one of the things that is helpful for me is to think about, to simplify and just say, what are the things that drive success in a business? And of course, it's profit. And then, but the things that support that profit is the plan, and it's the people, and it's the processes. And so the plan for us, our GSD, worked. And then in that plan, when you change and you think things, oh my goodness, what are you gonna do, and how is this all gonna work? All of our salespeople were like deer in the headlights. What do you mean we can't do parties? Can't go out and do a tasting party? How are we gonna survive? And what I learned through that was the best change agent is fear. Because we put out that booking boot camp and helped them, not booking, it was an online, how to do online parties. They were like, well, I better try, because otherwise I won't have a business left. And even though it was, a couple $100, $300, $400 a month that people earn an extra income, maybe not everybody, some don't even earn that, but they wanted to preserve that. And so sometimes we look at fear as being a negative thing, and it can be a hell of a change agent. And so that would be the one other thing I'd add. So the plan worked, and then simplifying the processes, and of course bringing the people together and making sure the people are forward focused and keeping them taking it 1 minute at a time and not looking too far ahead.
Great. Well, thank you. And on that, I just want to say thank you so much for taking some time out to talk with me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I also add that it's really nice because we can work from anywhere. And so my husband and I are working from Florida this week.
Well, that's
you wonder why I have palm trees behind me. And so that's a beautiful thing too. Congratulations, Dale, on the work that you're doing with this. This is really an awesome project that you had as an undertaking.
Well, thank you, Joel. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank our sponsor today, the Platinum Group, which for 40 years has been helping companies during turbulent times such as these. If you would like to receive some advice or just a second opinion, you can learn more about Platinum Group at theplatinumgrp.com. I also want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We'll see you next time on One Take.